Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Today we have an incredible journey to share with you. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here listening to this episode. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends and family and workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes and so we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today, it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to this podcast interview. Today we have an inspiring guest, Philip, who has navigated an incredible career in tech and video game industry over 20 years. Starting in digital entrepreneur at 16, Philip excelled in flipping websites, selling advertising space, and running live events. His expertise expanded as he built marketing automation campaigns for billion-dollar brands and developed platforms and mobile apps. However, after life-changing neck injury playing rugby in January 2020 and the challenges posed with COVID-19 lockdowns, Philip refined his path. Now he dedicates his vast experience of helping female coaches and course creators overcome their challenges, their tech challenges, enabling them to amplify the impact. Philip is also the best-selling author of Finally Find Freedom, a book that empowers people to break free from their limitations. Join us as we explore Philip's remarkable story of resilience and transformation and gain insights into how you too can unlock your potential. Welcome, Philip, to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. It's great to be here. And yes, what an introduction.
You're welcome. It's amazing what you've achieved in your life. And tell us a little bit about let's go back to your childhood and go, who was Philip back then and how did he get to this point of being in tech and being an entrepreneur?
So growing up, I was always into my sports. My mum was an athlete, so it was, it felt natural for me. So Sunday afternoon, Sunday, the full day when I was growing up, sort of 9, 10 years old, it was rugby in the morning, football in the afternoon, swimming in the evening, and my parents running around trying to take me places. And that love for sport has been maintained throughout my life. It's taken different shapes and forms over the years. The one that I stuck with the most was rugby. And obviously there's part of a story there later in life. But having had the opportunity to tour Australia and Singapore when I was 16, playing rugby for my region in the UK, there was something else that grabbed my attention, and that was online video games. So there was a crossover period of, I've spent all this time playing sports. I've, achieved some amazing things. I've been selected to represent my region. And then this new shiny thing appears and it's like, oh, what's this all about? So I started to dive into that. I got involved in communities, writing news articles. That's where I then started, flipping websites and selling advertising. And that was the thing that started me on the path of, this is exciting. It's different. I'm meeting people from all over the world. I'm going to events. It's a community that's constantly changing. For me as a person, I like that variety. Having the same thing day in, day out, it's like, you know what? Okay, I'm bored now. So these online communities were amazing for me because it's like, there's a new event, there's a new team. What's my team doing? How are we getting on? What are we doing for practice? So there was that constant level of change, which was exciting for me. And I guess was that formation of a path that said, okay, how can I start to build a career in this industry? And I say build a career because the path is never straightforward. So I went to university to do computer graphics because I wanted to get into the industry and build the magical worlds that I had been used to exploring as a player. Except I failed my university degree twice, which meant that I actually couldn't continue on the original course. And so I switched from computer graphics to computer business, which again set me on a slightly different path. And then, finished university and set up my first business. So nothing is ever straightforward. There are twists and turns on that path, but that period from 16 years old, I was spending 5 hours a night practicing with teammates, getting involved in writing articles in different communities, and that laid the foundation then for the next 20 years of being involved in the industry in different shapes and forms.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I never went to university, but for me, it was all about believing in myself and really backing myself. You know, I had no qualifications, but I just backed myself and believed in myself that whatever I wanted to do, I could do it. You know, but wow, what a childhood. So tell us about you mentioned about uh, breaking your neck while playing rugby. How did that change your life?
It was a massive change. Aside from the physical elements, it was a wake-up call. So
Mm,
if you're familiar with rugby, I was playing fullback,
mhm.
15, last line of defense, got to make the tackle or they're going to score.
Yeah.
So I made the tackle, but I got my head on the wrong side. So my opponent's thigh went straight into my face, jarred my neck. And it wasn't until 7 weeks later that I got scans and was told it was broken. But I guess that whole experience of I've made a tackle, I've stopped them scoring, that's great. I
Mm,
now can't move my head and neck. Oh, it's the same for 7 weeks. Maybe I need to go and get some scans. And I went to see the physio for 7 weeks because we had access to a physio for free with the team that I was
wow.
playing for. And they were like, yeah, it's not really changing. Maybe you should go and get some scans.
Mm,
So it had been broken for 7 weeks before I even knew it. So sitting in that consultation room, having had the scans, and the consultant sitting me down going, yeah, it's broken. You could really do with the plate and screws being inserted. It'll be about maybe 3 to 6 hours worth of surgery. I was like, no, I can't cope with that and I can't afford it. So it was a big wake-up call to say, I've had a lucky escape here. Because if it had been any worse, that could have been it. I could have been out for the count on the pitch and everything would have been over. So I look at that and say, I've almost been given a second chance here.
yeah.
This is an opportunity to make some changes, to look differently at myself, the world around me, what it is that I want to do. The challenging bit was then COVID hit. So
Mm,
with the lockdowns, struggling to keep my business going, it's like everything's being piled on at once. So not only have I got to try and put faith in myself that my body can heal because I didn't have the surgery, I've
mm,
also got to try and keep my business afloat
mm,
during the COVID lockdown. So it was like, I almost can't think about anything else. I just need to get through this period and then we'll see what happens after that.
yeah.
But there was still that thing in the back of my mind that said, this is probably a message. This is a good time to start thinking differently about
Mm,
where you want to go
yeah.
next. And that's where I then started the personal development journey in the spring of 2021.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the time in COVID. Like, how did it impact your business? What was going through your thoughts and your emotions? What was happening for you? Um, so that our listeners can relate to like what it, yeah.
Yeah. So Dubai was very different from a lot of places.
Mm,
We had nightly curfews. They would spray the streets. You had to get and apply for a pass to go out and get groceries. So it was quite restrictive in that respect, at least in that sort of the early months. Because again, it was all new. Nobody really knew how to deal with it, what their potential outcome would be. So the decision here was made like, right, close everything down. Let's try and minimize contact, impact, all those sorts of things. So for me, it was tough because all the events disappeared. So
mm,
where a large part of my business was events on behalf of clients, either managing them or helping them understand how to do them, that just disappeared. And unfortunately, being in the video games industry in the area that I was specializing in, a lot of people started to try and shift to online. So I was able to do some campaigns and projects, but there were also a lot of people who said, well, I think we need to take a time out on this because we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know how
Mm.
long these lockdowns are going to last, what the long-term impact is. So we just maybe need to tighten our marketing budget. So for me, that's where I say 50% of the business fell away, because all of those potential projects disappeared. All of
Mm.
the projects that I was working on, it was like, thanks for doing this bit up to here. We need to take a pause now because we need to see what happens. So I literally was scrambling through that period to try and, okay, where can I get these projects? And I guess that's one of the things, if I look past COVID and starting to make changes, that whole experience is what has led to me looking at rebuilding my business from the ground up to say,
Mm.
project-based, it's not right for me. I need something that is, if it's going to be service-based, it needs to be recurring. I need to build that relationship with the clients and offer something that I can keep doing for them and support them with based on my experience. And that's where I now, the work for female coaches, because again, that's the sort of thing where I can do the heavy lifting on the tech side. They don't have to worry about it, but I can support them on an ongoing basis rather than a 3-month one-off write a strategy for a government.
Yeah.
It's a very different type of setup. But yeah, that period of the lockdowns was tough because I had the neck. I had my wife working from home as a teacher, so she was online all the time. I was scrambling to try and get projects to keep the business going. And that whole mix was a challenging time. And mentally, it was a challenging time because I can't think about my neck because I can't control that anymore because I've chosen not to have surgery. I can't control the world situation as it's going on and my impact on that. I can't control whether clients say yes or no, again, based on the world situation. So it's like, I'll just try and do whatever I can and see if we can get outside of this, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, until finally, things started to become a bit more relaxed here in the UAE, and you can go and have meetings again, and people were starting to explore different opportunities. Okay, maybe we bring back some projects. So yeah, it was a tough period.
Yeah, a lot of people don't deal well with uncertainty, right? And especially when it's something physical like your neck.
Yeah,
And you probably didn't know whether it was going to heal, but you had enough faith in God, universe, or that it was going to be all right. And I guess what I'm hearing is that you had faith that things were going to work out for you. And often in uncertainty, we've got to let go of control and just let things unfold as they are meant to, because the more we try and control, the more it goes the other way. And I've just learned that
absolutely.
recently. Yeah, recently in the last year, I've learned that, and more so in the last 6 months. And so yeah, no, it's absolutely understand and appreciate what you went through there. So with in 2021, where you started to redevelop your business and your personal development business, is that correct? Like what was the motivation there? Was it the COVID? Was it COVID, or was it in your neck, or was it something else that kind of motivated you? And who were the key? What was the key thing that kind of, or the key person that kind of helped you get through that time and rebuild?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think it was the combination of everything. You
Mm.
talk to some people and they're like, lockdown was tough, but I saw an opportunity. I was in a position to go and find things or, set things up, do online courses, do online trainings, take my fitness business from physical to online and all those sorts of things. It's like,
Mm.
great. I wasn't in that situation because I had multiple things to try and deal with. So I guess as things started to ease up into 21, and I was like, right, maybe this is time for that reset. It's time for some changes.
Mm.
And I saw an advert on YouTube, and you can laugh and be like, okay, so you're one of those people who just clicks random adverts. So I was like, well, actually, yeah, because it caught my attention. And I looked at it and thought, why not? What have I got to lose? I've
Mm.
just been through all of this. I'm now out the other side. I've got an opportunity to make changes. So let's see what happens. So I
Yeah.
went through, clicked the advert, bought the course. It was Tim Mahan's Life Mastery Achievers, I think, LMA. And that course literally kicked my ass
Mm.
because it got me to start thinking differently. There was a question in there, and it was pretty much, what impact and contribution have you made, and what's going to be said at your funeral?
Mm.
Now, the fact that I'd almost been at that point, because if my neck had been any worse, that would have been the situation. So I was sat there going, yeah, I've been doing stuff for global brands and governments, and there's been no impact and contribution. So that's where then I set about the task of, right, how can I rebuild the business? How can I rebuild myself? What is it that I'm going to focus on? How can I use my skills and experience to support others to try and have some level of impact and contribution moving forward? So yeah, that was the start of the personal development journey. I've obviously then gone on and done other things. I've done Tony Robbins and Unleash the Power Within Virtual. I've done Dean Graziosi stuff. I've read various books. And, you know, I am someone who was always a student. I know there'll always be new things that I can learn. So whether it's taking courses or reading books or just saying, let's just go to an event, see what happens, see what I can learn. Maybe it's just one golden nugget, but maybe that helps me do something new. So, you know, I dived into that, and yes, I did all the courses and the online trainings and bought the books, and it's like, okay, right, I'm reframing my view now of the world. So one of the things that has changed for me is, yes, I now view everything, you know, the universe has a plan, whether we like it or not. Even some of those challenges, and certainly the challenges that I faced, it was a catalyst, because it's changed the way that I view things. It's put me on a different path. You know, it's been the catalyst for making those changes, writing the books, helping people in a different way. So if none of that had happened, I wouldn't now be working to support people. I would have probably still been stuck in the same situation with a business that I didn't really enjoy. And it's like, okay, great, what's next? So yeah, that personal development journey for me has, yes, there's been the financial investment and the time investments, but the things that I've been able to do on the back of that, and the, you know, the view that I now have of the world and myself, priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree with you there. We are lifelong learners, and it's so important that we just continue to learn and evolve. You know, one of the things I say is, I'd rather be evolving than revolving. You know, I don't want to be the hamster on the wheel. And like for me, last year, I went through probably my third redundancy in my career, and I started my own business, and that was the catalyst for me to start my own business, as consulting and coaching. Although coaching wasn't my end goal is to be a public speaker and a change influencer. But out of that journey came out this podcast. You know, this podcast was birthed out of that journey. And as soon as I started this podcast, it was like my voice. It was my voice. You know, for years people have said, "Shut up," you know, "You talk too much," blah blah blah. And when I started to embrace my authentic self and actually step out and do this podcast, it actually made me feel like this is it. This is my happy place. So yeah, and then, you know, then I stopped my coaching stuff, and then I've gone back into full-time work. But I've actually realized that actually for me, that's where my work is. That's where the universe has put me, and I'm there for a reason. And it's interesting what in a short space of time, the things that I've already achieved in about 9 weeks, you know. So I'm just going to go back to, so with those changes, like the personal development journey, I have a question here around, there would have been changes that you made in your life, like giving up certain things, like, you know, being a rugby player, you probably drank a lot of alcohol, or, you know, whatever, you know. So what were those changes that you made in your life to give up and let go of things that no longer served you, or no longer helped you, should I say?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, rugby was one of the immediate ones because when I got a second set of scans and a new consultant told me that my neck had healed, it was a miracle. But don't go and play rugby, get into car accidents or skydive. It was like, okay, right, yeah, we'll stop that. But that process of change, a lot of it comes down to what's important and what's not important. So I gave up alcohol because it was like, that's not really important. And it's ironic because there's a natural association with rugby and drinking, but I was never a big drinker. Here in Dubai, yes, you could do all you can eat and all you can drink for 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon. And I would do that. I'd do it with friends. But then I'd be struggling for 2 days afterwards with a hangover. It's like, you know what? I don't need that anymore. That's fine. I'll go for the food. I love good food. Don't need the alcohol. So yeah, I've given up alcohol. I haven't had a drink in 2 years. It's fine. It doesn't bother me. Yes, there were some questions from friends and families like, what are you doing? Just have a drink. It's fine. I was like, no, I'm good. I don't need that. I've made that decision. So that was, yes, one of the changes of things that I've given up. And that process of saying, this is what I'm doing, and then sticking to it. See, like anything, we have to be consistent. It was tough in the beginning, but it got easier. And then people around me were like, well, there's no point asking you because you're just going to say no. I was like, fine, don't ask me. We can just move on. So, there are things like that, yes. But that's, and, certain relationships, for example, started to move away from. And this is what I write about in my book, is that there are 12 chains that hold us back in life. And it's about uncovering them and then working to break free of them. So relationships is one of them, because yes, we can have amazing positive relationships. That may be with family, it may be friends, spouse, kids, whatever. It's probably also relationships that are negative, that drain us. So the opportunity then is to say, I just need to distance myself. I need to protect my energy. I need to protect myself. So that's one of the things that I started to do, is like, who do I not want to spend as much time with to protect myself? And so that was another one of the changes that I started to make. Is like, okay, yeah, this is something I now feel better because I'm not spending as much time with these people or in these situations or in these places. Okay, great. I can now start to move forward. So a lot of it comes down to the, making the decision to want to change and then being consistent with that change. But yeah, alcohol and relationships were two of the big things that I made that decision and then worked to follow through on it.
Tell me about the 2 books that you wrote. I'd like to hear more about those 2 books. What are those books and what are they about? And yeah.
So the first book is for parents. Okay. So I mentioned already, that personal development journey and the question of impact and contribution. That question led me to writing the first book. So my partner is a teacher. She teaches young kids, sort of 6 to 9 years old. She needed a maths lesson one day for her students. And I knew from the conversations that I had with her that they all liked a particular video game. So I was like, why don't we just create a lesson based on the video game? Because they'll all love it. And she was like, oh, I'm not sure. We did. We went through 30 minutes. Okay, here's a plan. Here's some resources. She took it into school the next day. They loved it. I got a message from her. It's like, they are so engaged. There's no dramas. They're just fully on task. And it's like, great. Okay, so maybe that's how I can use some of my experience in the video games industry to support the education industry. So I then started a process of creating worksheets based on different video games and different levels of maths and the age groups, making those available to parents, making them available to teachers. But the conversations that I had with parents was, this is great. And I love the fact that I can help improve the math skills of my child by using the video games they already play. But I've got a challenge with screen time. So I was like, okay, so I can't help you with the maths unless I solve the screen time challenge. So I then went and interviewed parents and child psychologists to find out the strategies that had worked for them for managing screen time and parts of online safety, which I then put together into the first book. So the first book is split into 2 halves. The first half is for managing screen time and online safety. and is based on those interviews and the feedback from parents. The second half is about how to use those popular video games for that age group, so Minecraft and Roblox and FIFA and Fortnite, to improve their math skills. So that was the first book. And then I went and did online training for parents, again, on these topics. So the first book launched the end of 2022. Coming to June 2023, I was doing some online training for parents, and I created a model and framework of 12 things that impact you as a parent and your ability to manage screen time that you're not aware of. So I had relationships, and the context for that was your relationship as a parent with technology. If you have a poor relationship with technology, your child will see that and think it's okay to spend all their time on a device. And I looked at that model, and it was 12 things. And then I was like, actually, that's a life model, which then became the 12 chains and the basis for the second book. So my journey has been interesting, because it's like, here's a way that I can have impact and contribution using that video games experience. Here's the resources that I've created, courses, that first book. But that is what actually then led me to the second one and the path that I'm now on. Because I looked at that model on the slide, I was like, that's a life model. I've had to work through some of those challenges myself. This is something that I need to share. So that, was like, bang, there's that flash of lightning. Okay, 60 days, I wrote the second book. I was spending like 2 hours a day going, I get this, I understand how to fit all this together. I can do some exercises with people. So the book, it does take people through uncovering those 12 chains and how to break them, but it also gives them exercises to do so they can uncover them in their own lives and then work out, okay, what are those changes that I want to make moving forward, whether it is relationships, whether it's how we use our time, whether it's actually having a vision for the future, because a lot of people don't, they just go with the flow and see what happens. So it's an interesting journey to say, I wouldn't have written the second book if I hadn't gone through the process of writing the first one and supporting parents in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell us about the second book, the 12 chains. Is it the 12 chains and the chain to champion? Is that correct?
So that's sort of the signature program and the framework. The book is Finally Find Freedom. So that takes people through, here's the 12 chains, here's how we uncover them, here's which are the easiest ones to break, here are the 4 steps you can take to break a chain, set yourself up for success, track certain things and make notes and ideas and thoughts. So yeah, Chains to Champion is sort of the video course seminar version of the stuff that's in the book. So if you just want the book and you're a reader, it'll take you through that process. If you want something a bit more robust or in a different format, it then becomes the Chains to Champion program.
Right. Okay. So that's your online program that you offer. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And it will be the brand or the identity for live events as well. So if I was to do, for example, a 3-hour or half-day seminar type thing, we would follow those steps that are in the book, because it's vision, uncover the chains, now how we're going to break the chains. So we'll go through each of those steps in that format and structure. So yeah, I've now got it in a way where I can book, audio book, video course, live events, and just enable people to consume in a way that makes sense for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to tell us why did you focus on helping women coaches or female coaches and the course creators with tech challenges? What made you go down that track?
Great. Yes, great question. And we talked about the universe having a plan. Okay. And for a long time, because I wrote the book and I published it and I was getting the reviews and it was positive feedback, and I was like, great, this is the thing. And I can see how I'm going to do the live events. And I've got the video course version and all of that. It's like, that's the thing that I can focus on. And then there are a couple of things that happens. I was referred to a lady who is a gut health coach. So I was referred to her, and I was like, you need to help this lady. She's struggling with her tech stuff for a coaching business. I was like, okay, let's have that conversation. So I rebuilt her sales funnels and her own email automations. And then my mum contacted me and was like, Phil, I need your help with rebuilding a website. which is I'm doing, and is the fourth project I've done for her over the years.
Mm.
And I was, because I've been in the tech industry doing all sorts of things and the games industry, that was something that I was trying to move away from. So I was reluctant to do anything tech related moving forward, because I had the book and I had the course. I was like, you know what, I'll go and do the live events and I'll be a speaker, and I've got the book as a resource. Okay, this is what I'm going to focus on. And then, those couple of things and other people literally, I say literally, figuratively, slapping me in the face, saying, look, you've got all of this experience and knowledge. You said you want to have impact and contribution. Why are you not using that experience to help people? And I was reluctant. I was like, yeah, but I've been in tech for so long, and in reality, it's not the tech that I was bored of. It was what I was doing in the industry. So I've now sort of gone, okay, yes, that is my superpower. Let's embrace it. Let's use it to help people. So that decision to say yes to continuing with the tech stuff, for the female coaches, again, those experiences of helping this lady who was a gut health coach, conversation and supporting my mum with some of her projects. And then that experience with the book, creating some content, the majority of the feedback has been from women. So there's clearly something in terms of the way that I write, the way that I create my content, the messaging that I have, maybe me as, still looking like I'm 16, whatever it is, there's just more of an energy match that I found. It's easier for me to have conversations with women about what's going on in their life, their business. So I've said, okay, let's lean into that. Let's use that and the experience that I have to say, look, you're a coach. The reason you're a coach is probably because you want to have impact. So if I can help you by using my tech skills and experience, I can help you have more impact. That enables me to have indirect impact. So yes, the book and my course can help me have direct impact, but working with these female coaches and supporting them on their journey and having that energy connection enables me to have impact on a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's great that you reused your skills and your knowledge in a different way. And yeah, absolutely. That is what the universe wants you to use. But like you said, you were just bored of doing what you were doing before, but doing it in a different way. So how do the sales funnels and email automation help save time and increase earnings for your clients?
Amazing question. And it's interesting because depending on the world that you are in and, the way that you have educated yourself about business, you may have read books, taken courses, had coaches. There are different schools of thought. For me, because of my background where I was creating email automations for billion-dollar brands, for airlines, for streaming platforms like Netflix, for fashion retailers and e-commerce retailers, it's like that was a core thing for them, using email as a way to connect with their customers, get them to purchase and purchase more. A lot of coaches, they focus on the two ends of the spectrum. I need to attract people and I need to deliver, which is great. Those are two of the 4 Ds that I take people through. So the discovery side and the delivery side. They often forget about this middle bit. Where are you sending people? What are you getting them to register for? And then once they've registered or raised their hand, how are you engaging them over time? Because not everybody's ready to buy. If you look at any of the trainings, courses, general material, it's like 3% are supposedly ready to buy right now, whatever it is that we're offering. So what are you doing with the other 97%? So somebody who comes into your universe, you may send them a couple of emails that says, thanks for registering, here's your freebie, and then not do anything with them. When in reality, what you could do is you could say, okay, maybe they're not ready right now. They've taken my resource. They've watched my training. They've been on a webinar or they've attended my live events. Now I'm going to try and build that relationship with them. So if we can build those systems as a coach, it means, again, your job is still attracting people and bringing them into your universe and delivering your service so you can have impact. All of that tech stuff in the background, we can almost put it on autopilot. So for somebody, it may take them 3 months to say, now I'm ready. For somebody else, it may take 6 months. But you can build all those things which means you can focus on everything else. So it saves you time because, okay, you have to do the build up front, but it means you don't have to sit there every day saying, okay, let's look through this list. Who are the people that I need to send a reminder to, or just a, hey, reconnecting, how are you doing? You know, what's been new in your world? Well, you can automate all of that. You can just say, this person hasn't done anything in 3 months. I'll just send them a quick note and see how they're getting on. So you can save that time of having to, you know, send these manual emails. That's great. And in terms of earning more, again, because it's on autopilot and not everybody is ready to buy right now, if you automate all this stuff, that's where, yeah, somebody 3 months down the line may say, now I'm ready. Or you sent them an email that says, not sure if you saw this, I've just created a new course. Here it is as a discount. Whatever it is, again, you set it in a way that whenever those people are ready, you're giving them those options to buy.
Thank you for sharing all of this. This has been it's been really, you know, it's insightful for me, and I'm sure for the listeners as well. Now I'm going to, at this stage, we're going to ask you 5 quick fire questions. You could either answer it in one word, or you could answer it in a sentence. So, how do you define success, and has that definition for you changed over time?
That's a tough question. For me, success now is different from what it used to be. Success is, am I doing something meaningful where I can have an impact? So, you know, you can take the money out of it. Yes, I still need the money to live and pay the bills and things like that. But if I can get up every morning and know that I'm building something or supporting people using my skills and experience, that is success. You know, I've had corporate jobs. I've sat in the office 9 to 5. It's like, that's not me. I need to have that freedom and flexibility to be able to explore things and help different people. So success for me is having that freedom to go and do that exploration, help different people, build things for them, support them, engage them, help potentially educate them. That is what success is. I know that's a mouthful. That's longer than one word and one sentence, but you know, it's just that you know, that view of success now is very different from what it was before I had the injury.
Yeah, and it will continue to evolve as you go on your journey. Absolutely agree with that. So who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
I think that would be my mum.
Yeah.
So she has been an entrepreneur. She had her own businesses for years, sort of doing training in the care space. So training, you know, care home managers and staff to support their clients. So having her own business and doing various other things as well. Seeing some of the challenges that she went through, but the fact that she was still able to thrive, I think, you know, that again has played in my mind, and that she would go and explore different things. So she's tried all sorts of different things over the years, you know, in the more traditional, okay, corporate world as an employee. And I think that almost fearlessness to say, let's apply, let's see what happens. I'm going to apply to be a firefighter, which she did. And she was like, okay, let's go and try it. She then decided it wasn't quite right for her, but she still went through that process. She was cabin crew for years. It's like, again, why not? So I think that had a major impact on me. And that's why I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 16, because it's like, yeah, why not go and try things, explore, build things, see what happens.
I was just going to ask you, did your mum influence you, excuse me, and you know, kind of, did that shape your journey of becoming an entrepreneur? And so thank you for answering that.
It has. It's also worked against me in the relationship, because there have been times where it's like, you get the message from mum, it's like, you've been offered a job, it's the security, take it. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't feel right.
No.
So it's interesting, that dynamic sometimes of, you've influenced me to be an entrepreneur based on the journey that you've been on. And then sometimes you're advising me to take the safe option because it's sensible. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, look, I went through that. As I said, I went back into full-time work, and I kind of had that struggle with myself as to, am I giving up my dream by not doing coaching? And it took me like a couple of weeks to actually sit through that and realize that actually, well, coaching is something I enjoyed, but it's not my end goal. And so I wanted to put my focus fully in helping people in technology. And here I am working for one of the largest uh, councils in Australasia, as a business partner that is basically effectively supporting a group of departments on its own, but being able to influence people and the way they show up, you know. And so, you know, like I've always been the kind of person, like for me, it's like, what difference can I make today? And I was sitting with the general manager of a department this week, and I said, well, I said, my motivation is, what difference am I going to make every single day when I show up here, you know? And she was just like, wow, that's cool. All right. So what is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
I'll give you two. So one we've already spoken about. So that's universe has a plan for us.
Mm.
The other one is influenced by Vishen Lakhiani's book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the BS rules of society. They're there. It's whether we choose to recognize that they are there and then say, does this work for me? Or do I want to do something different? You know, we're told early on, go to school, get a degree, get married, buy a house, have kids. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't work for everyone. That's not what everybody wants. So there are certain rules in society. And his example in the book is amazing because it's like he wasn't allowed to eat beef burgers growing up because of his religion. And he was like, yeah, but half the world eats beef burgers. So what's the deal? And his parents eventually, you know, let him try a beef burger. But it's that sort of thing. It's like wherever we are culturally, possibly location in the world, there'll be certain restrictions and limitations. We need to be able to identify those and decide, are they right for us? Or do we need to do something different? Maybe it is change location. Maybe it is say, I need to change my job because actually this is restrictive. So those BS rules of society, yeah, for me is something that not everybody will agree with because they're quite comfortable in the position that they're in right now and they don't necessarily recognize those rules or those restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been doing that course on the Mind Valley, to be extraordinary, and yeah, I was so halfway through it and learning lots. Okay, so if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
How young are we talking?
Maybe
At
16?
any point in time.
16?
Yeah, 16. Build assets and leverage.
Yeah,
because those are the things that enable you to break free of a 9 to 5. So if you want to sit on the beach all day and have that laptop lifestyle and things, it's like you need to be building assets, you need to be building leverage. So where I started in, you know, early days, it was flipping websites and selling advertising and doing live events and those sorts of things. If I was to look back on that now and say, okay, what would I have done differently? Through all of that learning, it'd be like, right, I may not have actually sold them. I would have tried to grow them because they were an asset. Okay, if I can grow them and add value, they increase in value. Okay, where does that now take me? And you know, as I sold some of those things, I then saw others, you know, a couple of years later, because they've grown, obviously they were sold for multiples. And it's like, you know, if I'd have done things slightly differently and had a different perspective, again, everything could have been different. But it's tough because you also look and say, but if I'd have done that differently, then I wouldn't be on the path that I'm on right now. And if this is the path that I was meant to be on,
Yeah, absolutely.
would I tell myself something different? Would I say, just do it?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So what is one message that you would like to share with the world?
There's so many things that I could say.
In this present moment, what is on...
In this present moment, I would say we are the biggest things that hold us back. Okay. And to build on that, I'll take a sort of a line of thought from my book. Happiness is a state of mind. Freedom is a way of living. Okay. We have the ability to choose whether to be happy or not based on the situation around us, what we're grateful for. Freedom is how we use our time and the way that we choose to live. And again, we can control that.
Totally agree. I've really enjoyed this interview with you, Philip. It's been really insightful, like as I said before. I'm sure our listeners have found that as well. And I'd love to get you back for some more episodes. But if the audience would like to connect with you and maybe have a chat with you or join your program, how can they do that?
So the best, if they're looking to sort of connect with me directly, it's on LinkedIn or it's on Facebook. Those are the two main channels that I use. If they're wanting to understand more about that, the 12 chains that hold us back in life and how to break free of them, I've actually recorded a 3-episode mini podcast. So it's free, just need to register for access to that. And it will take them through the overview of those 12 chains, which ones are the easiest to break, and then the 4 steps that they can use to break them. So yeah, that is available at 3lifesecrets.com. So it's the number 3, lifesecrets.com. And quick email address, put it in there, then it will give you access and say, okay, here's the podcasts. You go and start listening. There's a workbook to go with that to guide you through some of it. And again, get you to start thinking, okay, can I identify these chains in my own life? Are there changes that I need to make? So yeah, that's free for all the listeners.
Cool. So what we'll do is we'll add the links into the description of this podcast so that people can just click on it and get there. So yeah, thank you, Philip, for joining us today on the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. And so the listeners, if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you've been inspired, I encourage you to share it with someone who, like your friends or your family or your workmates, someone who would benefit from this. And if you haven't already done so, follow this podcast episode so you don't miss, or follow the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And we can get it out to the wider community as well. And I want to encourage you to champion your life and champion your greatness. Have an amazing day.